Afternoon, we are going to continue work. The floor is given to Mr. Olexander Zavgorodniy. He is the acting general director of the Ukrzaliznytsia. He is going to tell you about the reforms in the railroad structure of Ukraine. You have the floor, sir. Good afternoon. Taking into consideration that the Ukrzaliznytsia Railroad is a major artery of our country, of the state, we understand that this structure attracts a lot of attention. And in order to leave the majority of the problematic issues or the questions toward us, we would like to speak a lot for short about the railroad, what kind of management we have, what it is like today, what kind of changes or amendments can be expected for the next 3 months. This morning we had a coordinating meeting with the heads of the railroad sections, directorates of all Ukraine, where we clearly identified the priorities of the work of the top management, the stages we have to go through, the stages for elimination of those non-transparent schemes which have been existing or still exist in Ukrzaliznytsia. So we start about short information about the Ukrzaliznytsia railroad system in Ukraine. This includes the 6 sections in Ukraine, a number of different enterprises which ensure its operation. You know only too well that there is the resolution of the Cabinet Ministers number 200. You know that the work is going on along those lines, but we have to know that according to the amounts of carriage, the railroad ensures almost 82% of the cargo and about 70% of the passenger traffic. The railroad places third place in the countries or states in Europe and CIS countries, as well. According to operation parameters, this is a very large enterprise which has about 1,000 structural subdivisions located in almost all the big cities of Ukraine. But we can talk about today's situation, but I don't see a lot of sense in that, because today we are taking care of implementing the program of modernization. When this is finalized, we are going to present it to the management of the state, and we are going to bring our today's condition to those parameters, bring them closer to the global ones. And this slide shows the existing management structure of Ukrzaliznytsia in different railroad sections, which today manage all the operations in these subdivisions. Mr. Blank, First Deputy Zhirkovsky, who deals with the issues of the freight carriage, Deputy General Director Mr. Fyodorka, who deals with the passenger traffic, and myself, Mr. Zavgorodniy, Acting General Director and the head of the committee to organize this enterprise. In our structure, there are directors, and each of them is responsible for their own set of issues. Mr. Slipshin is Director for Investments, Director of Statistical Policy Mr. Domin, Passenger Carriage Mikhenko, Personnel issues Ms. Marina, Reform Policy and Infrastructure Mr. Mikhalchuk. Head of the Pridniprovsky section, Acting Deputy Ishchenko, Lviv Pich, Southern Section Tigursky, Odessa Section Boyka, and Donetsk Railroad Section. We today have the acting head of the section, Mr. Romanchenko, but he is, so to say, finds himself in different territory. A few words about myself.
I went all the way from the electric engineer for contact network. I received training as the Magister of Electrotechnical Equipment on the railroad, and I was participant member in the program, joint Tempus program with the French Railway, which was about share exchange of experience and learning from European experience. I started my work at the Pridnestrovska Railroad Network, and I was in charge of all the technical aspects of railroad transport operations. There is a lot of complaints about our work, about the work of our colleagues, whether it is about freight transportation or passenger carriage. And we need to understand that as we are moving towards European standards, we need to better comply with the requirements that the European public deems necessary. But on the other hand, there are things that we can boast to Europeans as well. We do understand the need to have a professional team able to mitigate risks and provide top quality services, railroad transportation services. There will be personal changes at the mid-level. At this moment, we are not going to make any changes at the top levels of railroad networks, but already this Friday we are going to notify the media about this new rotation and who will be replaced. There will be competitive selection procedures set up with 3-4 candidates to each position, reviewed by relevant selection commissions, and they will have to explain what sorts of reforms they're going to introduce. We understand the need of transparency in our operation and administration of railroad networks. We need to really look into the needs of freight transporters to cater for the needs of our passengers, and we see it as the topmost priority for us. And this should be done at all levels of administration. What needs to be done in this regard? At the moment, we are carrying express audits of all the structures and units, technical units as well, to estimate our capacities in terms of safe transportation. Really, the railroad network is in critical stage, technically speaking, but it is not as critical as some media would like to picture it. I think that winter comes, we will already be able to provide necessary technical parameters to operate in harsh winter conditions, and this will be among the first changes we are going to introduce. Then we are going to audit the performance of governmental solutions, reforming solutions in the Ukrainian railroad network. Next Tuesday, we are going to produce the end roadmap of reforms. We will provide drastic solutions in terms of safety transportation and better administration capacities. We've got a number of meetings with representatives of business communities and top customers in terms of scope of their freight transportation by rail. And the results will be notified within the coming 10 days. There will be transparency mechanisms introduced for selection of top managers. I already mentioned it partially. We are currently developing a procedure to analyze the whole set of steps and measures in freight transportation by rail, with a view of normalizing our customer relations, proper maintenance of our rolling stock, proper implementation of security and safety regulations also including the ones that deal with road transportation to eliminate risks of roads from high tonnage tracks. We will see what routes are not delivering economically, and we will find alternatives to introduce bus routes. We are experimenting now to a certain extent, but we already see some early positive results from this experiment. What it is all about. You know that 47% of railroad tickets are sold via electronic tickets, and not a single, no one knows about the real number of addresses to this electronic system, and we will need to check how effective it is, whether we need additional trains in Odessa, Novoalexeyevka, and Lviv directions. We are analyzing our passenger cars, their numbers, their conditions, in order to provide best possible, comfortable, hopefully, conditions for our passengers. We think about redistributing our passenger cars in a most optimal way, and we are going to introduce one-stop shop window to further mitigate and reduce risks of corruption. To here, I'd add here transparency pillars to be added to the railroad transportation system. You know, this legislation, the new legislation on railroad transportation that has specific procedures mentioned, and it will be our task to implement these procedures in reality, to provide people with possibility of having their addresses met. We are going to introduce electronic tendering procedure, and we have 3 regional railroads doing all the procurement through electronic tendering systems. We've spoke to the Ministry of Infrastructure to have our own electronic tendering system, given that we have more than 1,000 smaller enterprises and units within this, the umbrella Ukrainian railroad system, and this will provide us with better chances of monitoring procurement across the board. Many questions remain to our previous experience, to our previous performance, including matters of discounts to individual categories on railroad fare, and we have, say, compensation arrears in more than 1 billion hryvnias. And there are questions related to the corporate tax, specific rates of the tax that really choke us, preventing us from developing the railroad network. And I think that we'll need better contacts with the government to find better solutions. Again, we have now a more or less clear vision of where to move, in which direction to move, and we have a plan, an action plan for the coming months. I think that we will finalize our program of reforming the Ukrainian railroad network. We will work on establishing new terms and conditions of labor remuneration, establishing new juxta companies in specific cases. Actually, the slide shows a schedule of reforms. This one is a tentative one. We are going to further refine it in an attempt to skip one bit on the pace of reform to move a bit faster. I'm not going to give you details at the moment, but we have it in our plans. This is the range of reforms and action that we've planned in our team, and we think that the current measures we are taking are bound to succeed, are doomed to succeed, and it will provide better quality of passenger freight transportation. Thank you. I'm ready to take your question.
So please introduce yourself before putting the question. Olexander, can you please tell me, it's known that you are owner of 4 companies which are registered in the names of your relatives, and all of them get the contracts at the railroad. When you were nominated the main man in the railroad system, are you going to sell those companies? Is there any conflict of interest here? I'm going to answer that question because it's very popular on social networks. A bit of information before I answer the question. In October last year, I actually established a Facebook group for the rail transport of Ukraine, which for half a year has been working with the legislative basis which is associated with transport, the automobile and sea transport, etc., etc. So I will provide the simple answer to your question. I do not have those companies. There is one company which is registered in the name of my brother and my son. This is a construction company which has nothing to do with the railroad. So your information is a cider one and not true. Next question. Tkachuk, the Facts newspaper, said that we have to say goodbye to corruption, which was the case in the Ukrainian railroad. How did you work with Alexander Mammat, the former head of the Pridniprovsk railroad section, who was accused of many corruption facts? He was also arrested for the, let's say, theft of multi-million theft, what about your work with him? Didn't you notice? You know, he was the chief engineer, technical policy, and ensuring the construction efforts. All the questions to Mr. Alexander Mammat, who subsequently became the People's Deputy Ukraine, as a respected person, all actions were motivated by different things. I was dealing with the construction of large facilities, and I was rather special merited constructor of Ukraine, so a lot of those facilities were built under my leadership. So whether there was corruption or not, that was far away from us. We were working mostly in the field. We were not interested in those issues. There were some tasks set to us, and we were implementing them. At those stage, there was not such big corruption. So can you tell me, did you participate in the competition to fill the position of the general director? And another question, there is no declaration on the site of the railroad, and the Minister of Transport or Infrastructure doesn't provide this information. I'm trying to conceal something. Can you give us the information about the incomes of your family for the last year? Yes, we can. Before I was nominated the Deputy General Director of the Ukrzaliznytsia, for 2.5 years I was the public servant, and I cannot hide my declaration. It's clear. When I was dismissed, I presented my declaration for the year 2013 according to Ukraine for combating corruption. My declaration is going to appear on the website today, so there is no secret. So our topic of the briefing, reforming of the railroad in Ukraine. So if you have some questions regarding his declaration, in the areas also agency, do you consider the issue of renovation of the railroad communication with the occupied Crimea? Today, every week, we have the government committee chaired by Mr. Zavgorodniy dealing with this issue, how to organize and ensure this communication. Unfortunately, we have some outstanding problems today, but those groups are working on those issues. I believe by the end of this month, we have some understanding where to move further on. There is some problems with the rolling stock, verification and the customs and the border guards controlling this zone. Then the government has to pass some decisions so we can restore the communication within 1 hour, given the proper decision. in your Facebook's page, which is only 1 year, we have the impression that you created that page to show your public whatever activities. No, if you follow that page, you can see that the latest post was 3 hours in the morning today. So over the last 10-15 years, I start my working day 6 o'clock in the morning and all the way to midnight. Sometimes I have to rest, My Facebook page, I take care of myself about that, nobody else. And whatever we are going to do in the Ukrzaliznytsia, you'll find the information there. I never stopped criticizing, I used to do that and still I'm doing that. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Economic news. Minister of Infrastructure said that reform of the Ukraine Railroad Ukrzaliznytsia is almost completed. Do you believe that as well? It doesn't mean that you're not going to take care of the reform. No, I mentioned that. Nobody stops the reform. We are going to work along those lines. Moreover, we already reached the next stage. We are approaching the stage when we are going to create the terms and conditions for the operation of our enterprise. That means that the government is going to approve our statute. They are already finished to get acquainted with our statute. As soon as it's approved, it's on the website of the ministry. It contains the procedure for nominating the board. There will be a supervisory board, then there will be the board of directors, and then the enterprise itself. So we have the, let's say, 10 days period of time where everything is planned and outlined. We understand that we are going to form the Ukrzaliznytsia statute, but everybody has to understand that. I read in Facebook that I was nominated for 45 days, because in 45 days nobody will stop the passenger traffic or the train movement. It's going to work always. So we are take care of the reforms. On a weekly basis, we have the meetings in our directorate and the ministry. We have 10 minutes left, so please, your questions be brief and close to the topic of our briefing today. Thank you. Ukrainian National News, Mr. Olexander, the former head director of the Ukrainian Ukrzaliznytsia, Mr. Filiprishin, tries to be restored or instituted in his office, are going to bring that matter to the court. I believe if the manager's fault or guilt has been proven, even through the court, we cannot even talk if there is even the court ruling about our cooperation. There is a team of the heads of different sections of the road who work according to the schedule, and any changes in the management of Ukrzaliznytsia will not take place soon. Important question regarding reforming, since Ukrzaliznytsia has a new general director or the manager, so we'd like to know some facts from your autobiography. I believe it was somewhere in 2005 and 2008. 12 you were fired from the position of chief engineer position. Have you gone through the illustration position? Because under Imkosh you were a top manager now.
I'll first take your first question. The HR department, for those who are interested, is open and accessible. You can have access to all the orders about my nominations and dismissals. You won't be able to photo them, but you can read through them. So that was not true. Back in 2005, we had a complete change of the top management of the Ukrainian railroads. It was in August. Nearly all of the top managers were dismissed and rotated, and I was among the members who were rotated. Back in 2011, I voluntarily dismissed from my office because of discrepancies in principles with the then leadership of the Ukrainian railroad, and the documents are archived. You can check them. Speaking of my nomination in more detail and other nominations, there are inspections of everyone, and being a civil servant, I was suggested to go under lustration, but I was not top-ranking official at the time of Yanukovych. I lived through the so-called people's lustration in Zaporozhye last year. Вечерний Kyiv newspaper, Rusevich. Please tell us of the ways of finalizing construction of the Darnitsa Railroad station. And secondly, there are issues of electronic tickets being transferred from one enterprise to another under the guise of reforms. But don't you think that it may lead to corruption-related risks related to slashing funds? Okay, speaking about Darnitsa Railroad Station, we still haven't got time to think about this matter, frankly. As regards electronic tickets, there are two main issues with the Ukrainian railroad. First concerns the automated ticket selling system, and secondly, the system of issuing freight tariffs. Both of these have corruption components that lead to money being drawn from the system of the Ukrainian railroad, and we are analyzing the situation with an idea to have a clear vision of how we should provide safety of transportation and carriage by the beginning of this August. 1+1 channel, Oksana Sherbina, you mentioned it about your plans of instituting some bus connections. What did you mean? And then you mentioned the need to bring the rolling stock closer to the standards of the EU. Well, what were you in mind about it? You know, we have some routes that are serviced by just 2 or 3 passenger cars once or twice a week. They are using engines, whatever spare engine they have at the moment. And you can imagine the amount of fuel spent and all resources spent just to carry a couple of people, really a couple of them, 3 or 5, half of them using benefits and enjoying free rides. I think it would be better to launch bus routes, bus connections, to have it in a more efficient way. And this is what they do in France, in Germany. I think this is not a new thing, but it is very efficient. Regarding EU standards, we have a lot of technical regulations that at times are even more strict than those at the EU. At this moment, we have developed a new classificator of transport incidents. We are going to finalize it to match European standards, and we will closely cooperate with the EU Railroad Commission on that. Center for Transportation Strategies, Ola Bystritska, do you see any increase in passenger and freight transportation fees this year, and if yes, how big it will be? That's a challenging question. Essentially, all sorts of means of transport need to be competitive. And we need to understand that there is a certain tariff component that has to be defined by the state. If we take passenger transportation, then because of our drop in transportation, the Crimean direction, given the passenger to kilometer self-cost of 116 hryvnias established by the government, we have the real amount of 356 hryvnias, which brings us below the red line. And it's not about the faulty regulation, it's about the situation in the economy. And I think that we need to make these tariffs in line with reality, because otherwise we will lose the competition. This is why we are having this analysis routine exercise now to check it. This is what regards passenger transportation. As regards freight transportation, We see no real control on of road freight transportation. We see high tonnage trucks roaming our roads in spite of all regulations and limitations, and you know that they in the EU have certain very strict limitations to the maximum weight of such long-haul trucks, and we don't have it yet in place in Ukraine. We will need to look into that, and it will provide better estimates. Kirill Sazonov, Vesti Cherkashenki. Your nomination has been linked to an administration member, Mr. Bailin. What could you say that? I can only be connected to Mr. Pivovarsky, the Minister of Infrastructure, and it was his decision. And actually, I'm already tired with this yellow page type of questions circulated on the internet. Anton Kobylyansky, the Minister of Infrastructure, said that there will be new competition to your position after the end of the reforms of Ukrainian railroad system. Are you going to participate in this competition? Yes, surely. And I already supplied my documents, my bid. Yesterday we had an information about some agreement on restructuring of internal debt by the Ukrainian railroad system, and so this is the first we'd like to confirm. And what are the terms and conditions? Yes, we did so. The conditions I will not disclose because it is about commercial secret between the banks and us, but we have 82% of our debt restructured that way, and we have some smaller loans with smaller banks that we will settle in due time. Unfortunately, we still haven't got our financial plan agreed for the Ukrainian railroad system. It is because our predecessors not doing their homework when preparing their version of the plan in due time, and we need to rework it to submit it to the Cabinet of Ministers session scheduled for the next week. We will try to do it. When we are going to have documents in place, we will think about prospects of loans and loans management. A question of railroad trade union.
We're talking about the personnel changes, some transformation, the structural divisions, whatever. I believe that you would like to carry out reforms and good reforms, but I believe that the personnel which you have today in the railroad, Ukrzaliznytsia, which up to this date hasn't done anything. If they did something, we can see the consequence, just losses and damages. You won't be able to do anything with this personnel. Do you plan to change the managing composition of Ukrzaliznytsia? And question number 2. Do you plan to return the cargo cars which each top manager took, rented that, and makes money from the thin air, and will they return back those cars? Okay, I understand. May I answer? I'll start with the second question. Yes, there is a problem. Given the 110,000 car fleet, about 11,000 of those are rented by the private companies. That's why what decisions which have been taken now, and in 10 days we are going to finalize those. We are going to terminate the contracts and return those cars. And the majority of those contracts, their term is up to September. We are going to return those. We are going to change the functions, the management, etc. They will be given to the, to the stock or to the fleet of one company. They will have all the necessary control and management elements. The corruption component associated with those cars, just for your understanding, the railroad actually got 90 grams per day on those cars. If they were part of our fleet, we would make more money. So speaking about the managers and managerial staff, so no, I don't have the task to just to join the team and to fire or to sack everybody. We have to see and look what each of those persons were doing during this period. Maybe they did not have a chance to demonstrate their abilities, capabilities as managers. But there are some candidates, I would say, so to say, who are going to be fired as a result of this kind of verification. Those managers who take those positions, they block the trains not to bring the people from the western and central Ukraine to Maidan. They carried out repair in the winter time just to prevent people coming to Maidan. I know who you're talking about, and I already answered that question. The last question for today, concerning the Kunyan agency, I saw one item, optimization of the number of the personnel in your enterprise. How much you're going to reduce the number of the personnel, and what are your relationship with Mr. Blank today? Your first question. In order to answer a question using the figures, we have to complete the analysis. May I remind you that I've been working in this position for the 5th working day. So for those 5 days, we managed to take care of the locomotives and the rolling stones, but we haven't reached yet the issue of optimization. We have a problem. Just to give an example of Pridniprovsky railroad section and the section of Simferopol-Dnipropetrovsk. In 1996, we had 96 pairs of passenger trains. Now they have none, and they're talking about at least 2 trains for each line, and the according number of the car heads. We actually took the huge number of the trains from all the nukes of Ukraine. Now we do not have that luxury. So to say that we are not going to optimize, that's not correct. Number one. Number two, we have to understand clearly that today we are working on changing the vector of the carriage or transportation. If you talk about our system, we have the combined system of movement. We use both the freight cars and passenger cars in the same sections. And in some sections we cannot increase the speed of movement of the passenger trains because it's used also for the cargo cars, trains. Perhaps it's right to reach to travel from point A to point B for 5 hours, not for 15. We actually operated a big number of rolling stocks and the locomotives, which will allow us to further optimize our work. But in order for us to work in a normal way, we need modern systematic locomotives, which will allow us not to change the locomotive when we use we install this locomotive through Iraq to bring without the change of this locomotive to another point of destination. Regarding my relation with Maxim Blank, he's on the sick leave. I have not seen him in his office. I was just once during an interview with him when I was appointed on the acting manager, general director of our Ukrzaliznytsia. Thank you very much. As you can see, we've had a lot of questions shot at you. Now we'll be waiting for next time when you can come here and share us with your information. Thank you. In 2 minutes from now, we are